Good morning and welcome to the Upper Deck, brought to you by PinstripeChronicles. I'm Chris Northrup and with me is Lynn. We're here to bring you fan opinions, analysis, and basically just shoot the shit with you today. Lynn, how you doing?
Doing okay. Happy Groundhog Podcast to you, Chris.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a shadow of hope, light coming into the shadows today or tomorrow.
Right, exactly, which we can get to shortly. I know that this show is going to have a much more positive twist to it than it would have had at this time yesterday before we knew that they were going to meet today.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. But I want to first of all start out. I want to show you this shirt I bought. And today I'm repping Giancarlo Stanton. Stanton crushes baseballs. If you haven't heard of Obvious T-shirts, this is one of them. And they started out as a small company in Chicago. They've branched out to all areas of MLB and sports. But if you want to look at some cool T-shirts, check out obviousshirts.com. Anyway, that's my plug for the day. All right, let's get started with what's going on. Do you want to dive in with the CBA, or what do you want to do?
Let's do it. Let's get the elephant in the room under control.
Okay, let's do that. All right, so we found out yesterday that the players looked to jumpstart the CBA. They came back. They approached MLB. Looking at my notes, with an offer to reopen talks on a 14-team playoff field, with the idea that it can exchange this for more flexibility on the CBT numbers and other issues.
Right. And so I think that couching it that way, if in fact that's what the proposal is going to turn out to include, is the lower hanging fruit to use for leverage. Because when you look at where they are, the goalposts are closer together where it comes to the CBT. You know, it's a few tens of thousands of dollars as compared to, you know, some of the wider margins involving player salaries and are. So I think that it wouldn't be so painful for the owners to go down enough to make the players happy if in fact the players' response today says in more detail and with more definitiveness that, okay, we will concede to the 14-team postseason.
Right.
But then, you know, Chris, as you know, there's a real mixed bag of pros and consequences that come with that. Right.
Yep.
If this were to be something they shake hands on.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. One of which being that this opens up the door for teams that don't first, you know, make the run for the playoffs, however that ends up looking, that this 14 team expansion could potentially mean that those teams that are always ruled all out the way it is now, like those under 500 teams, for example, could potentially make it anyway into the race.
Right.
And so then what is the point even of a postseason if the competitiveness and the level of competitiveness
right
is that disparate?
Yep. But I did hear also that MLB might be looking to the future as they implement the 14-team playoffs, because there's speculation that they'll expand the league by 2 teams in the upcoming years. Now that I don't know that will happen, but that was some speculation that I heard. So then it would again, the 14 teams would make sense, make more sense. But why that makes sense now, most people don't believe that it does.
Right.
That definitely cuts the competitive edge out of the race, and that you're watching less competitive teams in the playoffs than should be there. And who knows? You never know. A team like the Reds could make it in and knock off the Yankees.
Right. I mean, we see that all the time. We see that all the time. Sometimes the underdogs, turn out and turn up those high leverage situations.
Exactly.
And face it, we would have loved the 14 postseason last season and several other seasons since 2007.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and to your point about looking to add teams, you're right. It would make better sense on scale that way, but that's in the clouds somewhere. So,
right. Yep.
So, and it would have to be a strategically placed too. If we're really talking about growing the game, then that should mean taking a look at where the game is now.
Right.
Regionally.
Yep.
Because even just looking at Boston, us, and Baltimore and Philly, that's an easy jump in the car to go follow your team.
Right.
But then there's parts of Middle America, and in particular, and maybe even the Southwest to a degree, where we need to have some build out there. So
right.
So that's interesting to think about. But to have in this agreement, they'd have to have a special rider in about if they were even to propose waiting on the 14 team until there's more markets.
Yeah,
that's a thought. But.
Exactly. Yeah. And I listened to an interesting podcast this week. I don't know if you had an opportunity. I think you said you didn't, but the point, Jeff Passan was a guest on the R2C2 show with CC Sabathia and Ryan Rucco. He's been making similar points in his tweets all week, so I don't think I'll be saying anything, that he hasn't already said. But one of the things that he said that most impressed me was that this is a fight for the soul of baseball. And that stood out to me as a really significant statement.
And so how did you interpret that?
Well, he went on to say that the players feel like they have lost ownership of the game. That the last two CBAs, and CC agreed with him, the last two CBAs, the players have gotten their asses kicked. Well, it's the CC's words. And that this CBA, they've said it, decided that they're going to remain united to make the changes that will take them back to some of the power that they've given up in the past.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too. And CC was especially hard on the players. He said that he blames the players for signing off on the previous two CBAs. That surprised me. That take surprised me.
Well, and that should really give pause.
It should give pause.
Players.
Yeah.
Especially from a guy like CC, who's so rapidly respected.
Yeah.
And so it's true. I mean, there's no doubting CC is right about that.
Right. Yeah, CC said it's their own fault. And that in past CBAs, when he was a participant, he felt like the executive committee was simply representing the top elites of the league, the top five of the league. And by the way, it's been the same executive committee practically, maybe with a few changes for the last two CBAs. The same players have been around for these CBAs. But anyway, he said he never felt represented by the executive committee. And there may be many players who feel the same way. And maybe that's one of the reasons why the players have come back to the table. Maybe they're feeling the pressure from their membership to get the deal done too. I don't know.
And in their favor. So hence the reason maybe why the goalposts are still so firmly stuck in the ground on the pay scale.
Yeah.
I would hope, but the thing is, they're CC, like I said, isn't wrong, and it is disturbing that the rule exists that there's no membership change in the executive committee.
I don't know exactly. I don't know that what he meant by that exactly, but Max Scherzer, for example, has been around forever.
Yeah, but even if it just considering that 2 CBAs came and went, and now it's the third with essentially the same membership.
Yeah,
tells me that when all is said and done, because we all want the same outcome. There needs to be a push on the MLBPA about that, to the extent that it's true, because what they should be doing is changing their own bylaws about the time frame in which a particular member may serve on the executive committee.
Yeah, that is in fact something that is an issue. Then that does need to be resolved. Or if there is not adequate representation on the executive committee of the players, they need to address that and change that too.
Right.
Right.
Like, for example, make sure that some of the smaller market teams are on that committee as well.
Right. And some of the younger players, maybe.
And some of the younger players who really should be there now.
Right.
To push for their own layer in the scheme of pay.
Yeah.
So that's really good on CC, for not taking sides for the sake of taking sides.
Nope. He said, in fact, that the stuff separating the two sides is stupid shit. In typical CC fashion, he really distilled it down to fighting over stupid shit. So, with that in mind, I say, get this deal done. All right, so go to 14 teams. I don't like it either, but, give up. You got to give to get.
Yeah, so ChicagoT-shirts.com, there's your next T-shirt. Done. You would get every fan market. But it's very true. And the unfortunate thing, though, is that there's still the possibility of having to choose between compelling owners to end the lockout without a signed agreement, and whether or not, and what would the players do? We don't know. It's a speculation point, but what's worth more to them? We know what's worth more to the players at the table.
Right.
They could afford to dig their heels in as long as it takes, just like the owners can. Yep. But it'll be if we come to that, that'll be another thermometer check on what they would do with that.
Yeah.
And it's very telling. Because there's people that need their paychecks more than others. And in fact, funny anecdote related to that, down in Atlanta, Papa John's, major sponsor of the New York Yankees, irrelevant. Papa John's held an event, and that's all it was, an event with 2 Atlanta ball players, and the name's going to escape me.
It was Jock Peterson.
Oh, so you know this. Yeah. And so it was this PR stunt of like, they're taking daily jobs at Papa John's for money. And, comedy often can imitate life. And we hope it doesn't come to that, but I would just love that flying across the airwaves and social platforms, because we know, and we've talked about it on the show before, the minor leaguers are baseball's like their third job,
right?
They're and they're concurrently working other jobs even during training and the season.
Yes.
And so, so Papa John's like, we'll take you.
I thought that was a great thing.
Come on board. I'm not a fan of the corporation, and that's a whole other topic for
exactly. Hey, and speaking of the little guy, this week MLBPA announced that they're going to be setting up a fund with $1 million for workers who are out of work due to the lockout, who are impacted by the canceled games,
right.
I should say. And MLB followed suit, but not as quickly as you might have liked. And they have yet to unveil what they are going to do. But this is for the electricians, the vendors, the ticket takers, and it's the security, and etc.
Right. And so, clearly MLB said, oh crap, now we got to figure out something to do for them.
Yeah.
So good on MLBPA for thinking of it first. However, it's a two-faced thing, right? So, okay, good. You at least now have awareness that these negotiations aren't just impacting you. And it also tells me, I think, that some of the messaging going on in Twitter and in Facebook must show that somebody's watching in their organization, and sort of pulled the sleeves on people to right. Hey, this is trending more and more. And it's something else fans and workers are getting riled up about.
Right.
And then, then the other side of the face is you wouldn't even have to do this if you started spring training and will start the season on time. So yeah, grand gesture, but shame on you. So
shame on you.
Face and this face.
Yes, I agree with you 110%. And I have even seen, I saw somebody critiquing the players for their $1 million fund, because I saw where that would only end up being like $110 per person. And I thought, well, hell, it's $110 more than they had, and God forbid this lockout lasts, because, and that's what Jeff Passan said. He said, if this does not end, it gets ugly when paychecks start getting missed. It's going to get down and dirty. So I'm hoping that this does not happen, that today they make, if they don't, is it too much to expect them to come to an agreement today?
So,
or just lay the groundwork?
The concern with that is, how many times have we asked that question?
I know.
Every day that they come to the table. And even though, there's folks out there like Bob Nightingale, who are painting an optimistic picture about today in particular, I'm just, going to continue to say, let's manage our expectations.
Right.
Because it really is about more than even getting past this 14-team playoff thing.
Yeah.
They still haven't solved the major obstacles of the CBT and the salaries.
Right.
And I don't see how much of a gimme the 14-team postseason would be to move either of those sets of goalposts.
Right.
So I'll play the pessimist to balance out the equation. Because, hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Right. And hopefully today won't be the worst. Every time, hope for the best.
I know. Hopefully the meeting doesn't last 15 minutes and end with, which we've had before. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Chris, going back to the workers for a second.
Yeah.
And where the hubris of owners comes in, I think. Are they not aware that there's vendors that they don't care if they break a contract with them, will walk? So aren't they aware that there are concessionaires and the workers behind the counters that will walk in droves.
Right.
And how do you open up a stadium if you reach this agreement? How do you open it with, X number of concession stands closed, and X number of workers to support the ones that are?
Yeah.
That's going to hit, that would hit them just as hard as some of the other things that are on the table, I would think. I don't know. And certainly this fund that as you pointed out, this fund that's being created is not going to keep anyone around. It's a gesture.
You're right. Absolutely.
It's not gas money to drive to your job at the stadium.
Hey, and you know what? While you were saying that, I thought you're lucky if you can keep workers these days, because as I understand it, this is a culture where people quit their jobs, where there's a lot of open jobs to be had in just those kinds of areas, like the minimum wage type jobs or lower paying jobs. Just you got to get workers and keep them.
Right, and the food industry being like one of the top examples of that.
Right.
And custodians and field worker,
groundskeepers.
Huge markets I happen to know personally in groundkeeping in particular.
Right.
There are college programs for it now. That's how high of a need it is.
Yes.
Just that thing. So
right.
Are they even thinking about that?
They're not. No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Taking a slight turn from that topic, I saw this morning Bob Clappish ran an article saying Yankees legend Derek Jeter's next job. How about saving baseball? And number 2 is back in the news. The captain perhaps being looked to as the savior of baseball. What do you think, Lynn? Could the captain save baseball?
The captain could save baseball if he had the power and force to remove Rob Manfred.
There you go. Yeah.
If we're going to take what they said literally, that's how you would save baseball. And yes, that would be a dream because, he's been an owner, he's been a player, and I don't see him being any owner's puppet.
Definitely.
He had the wherewithal to walk away as owner because he did not like the sub-level of competitiveness that he's seen on the Marlins,
right.
Particularly the past few years.
Right.
And so that tells you where his head is at. It's no surprise to Yankee fans that that's where his head is at. But that's how he would save baseball.
Right.
How long are we stuck with Manfred?
Yeah, exactly.
And the owners want that puppet, and the owners don't want Derek Jeter.
No.
Because it's a whole different ball game, no pun intended. So
exactly.
And he's not going to save baseball by becoming the owner, like buying out, another team or creating a new one. Should they decide to expand, the number of teams in the leagues? That's not, other than being an owner at the table, leveraging that way every time a new, CBA comes up.
Right.
So yeah, it's a dream, but is it kind of, man of La Mancha dreaming at this point?
Yeah. I love seeing that the captain with possibly with the Superman cape, saving baseball. Nothing would make me happier. But like you said, it's probably not in the cards. I mean, Clappish suggests that, he might get involved in the negotiations somehow, which I don't see how that would work out. But anyway, he is uniquely placed to speak for both.
He is, and he does have his own media outlet to use. And so he could start there with his, his articles that he publishes out of his publication.
Yep.
And putting editorials in there.
Right.
about, what they should be doing and, what fans should be expecting.
Yeah.
And he's in a no stakes situation to, encourage fans to vote with their feet. And by that means out of the stadium, like things like that. I mean, he'll be able to voice, his real opinion. So he does have that power now.
Right.
But would he execute that? And does he even really have the appetite to be involved in any way?
Right.
There's probably other factors other than walking. I know walking away from chump change wasn't one of them.
Right.
But his girls are growing up. There's a baby, growing too, and maybe he's doing well, we'll see what Tom Brady ends up doing, but more time with family thing.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that may not be the answer. I'm hoping today they don't need a Jeter to come in, that they can come to some resolutions, maybe not settle the deal, but we see progress. I would take that today. Within a week, if they could seal the deal within a week, I would take it. Would you?
I would take it, even if I fear the wrath of CC in a few years to come. The players need to cave.
Yeah.
Probably much more than the owners do at this point, if they're really representing the union as a whole.
Yeah.
And that's this piece that's suspect right now, right? That's what I'm seeing fans say.
Yeah.
That seems to be their perspective. And in the meantime, it still looms large for both sides that fans are already walking away.
Right.
Baseball is no longer America's pastime.
It doesn't, I think you're right.
It's past that time. Even if you just look at, it's not Nielsen ratings, but, football is the number one sport in this country across all levels of that, right? Yeah. Marketing, contracts, attendance and so forth. And the number of fans tuning in. So, and probably at this point, MLB is third after the NBA. So it's really a misnomer at this point to call it America's pastime.
Yeah.
That's past the time.
Yeah. It needs to definitely be reclaimed as America's pastime, because you're right, it slipped. I came across a funny thing, speaking of Rob Manfred, a team in Kalamazoo, Michigan, the Kalamazoo Growlers, they're part of a collegiate baseball league, had this to say about Manfred. They banned him from their stadium. And it said, the Growlers stand strong in their belief that fun is the key to baseball. Rob Manfred stands in direct opposition to these beliefs. Oh, and I would love to see more teams do it.
Where are they? Where is that team?
That team is in Michigan, Kalamazoo, Michigan.
I have an aunt and uncle in Missouri. That's not so far.
Yeah, no, it's out there in the Midwest.
Go to the game, buy some T-shirts. Good for them.
Yeah.
Question though, Kim, Chris, and I don't think you would have the answer to this. Is what does that do for that club in terms of scouting?
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good question.
If in fact they mean that and they were to follow through on that, whether Manfred would ever intend to attend or not, he'd be vindictive enough to say, "Oh yeah."
Yes, exactly.
I'm going to get all owners not to send their scouts down to you.
You're right. That's probably he's evil enough to exact retribution.
Yeah, kind of makes you want to call that club and say, hey, just great thing, great support, but think about yourselves and a potential consequence there.
Exactly.
But good on them anyway.
Good on them. That's what I say. Anything to, let's say, embarrass Manfred, I'm all for. In fact, I bought a Cancel Manfred t-shirt also this week. And by the way, I'm not buying any gear from MLB or from any thing affiliated with the teams, because I'm not putting money in any owner's pocket right now, which is why it's fun to go out and find something like Obvious t-shirts, you know, where you can support a small operation.
That's right.
Yeah.
And,
so.
Right. And, you know, I still have, you know, just trigger finger when I'm in my emails and I see an email from, I'm not going to name the companies, but you know what they are. And, you know, I'm just always automatically, 60% off, free shipping. And I'm like, no, because yes, 100%. I'll wear my million t-shirts and hats until they fall apart in the laundry.
Exactly. When they come back and things return to what I consider normal, you know, then I'll be able to go out and buy that Chad Green jersey I've been coveting for years. But until that happens, until fans are happy again, I say don't spend money.
No, absolutely not. And, you know, I'm gonna, if this season doesn't start, I'm canceling my subscription to Yes off of my cable package.
I don't blame you one bit. Many people have been, smart people have been canceling their MLB TV subscriptions.
That's right.
Because what are you getting for your money? I mean, if only they would show minor league games. Wouldn't that be great?
That would be very smart.
Get a minor league package.
That would be that, and it would be smart if Yes keyed into that. But that would be the only thing to make me hang around, and it'd probably be more likely to see an MILB network sooner than that would happen. So
you're probably right.
Yeah, and I know the fan base, at least the Yankee fan base, is a bit mixed on that, on what we're saying.
Yeah.
You know, that you know, they reserve their right, and they feel like, you know, no, it's what I enjoy. It's you know, it's what I've always done, and I'm not going to cancel anything or stop buying gear that I like.
Right.
And you know, I respect that opinion.
Right.
You know, and no one knows the real impact of those of us that are boycotting all the way through.
I know. I doubt that Hal's feeling the pain of my not buying a jersey.
No. And although the sample was small, Chris, you saw the poll I ran last week about will you know, stop buying tickets?
Yeah.
You know, so on and so forth. And it was a simple yes, no poll. And the yes was up in the high 80s, and the no was like, I think 18%.
Yeah. So,
you know, that, you know, but again, it's not something to tweet out to MLB.
No, exactly.
You know, it's not hundreds of people that voted, but anyway, you know, so if that's any sort of example, if I had, 10,000 followers, it'd be nice to think, you know, what that
you were influencing.
Yeah.
Well, I ran a kind of poll the last couple days. It wasn't an official poll, but I asked the question of Yankee fans, will you be surprised when Gardy gets re-signed?
I missed that.
And everybody said nope. They're like, they won't be surprised. I know you're a big Gardy fan. What are you thinking?
It's so refreshing that you brought Gardy's name up before I did on an episode. So thank you for that. Well, what we don't know is how many no's were no, God damn it. But, you know, I do think that there are some secret Gardy proponents that just don't voice it, because the tone on Twitter has been much more prevalently against Gardy. But I read something interesting last night, that the outcome of this CBA could potentially really lessen Gardy's chances of signing anywhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And there wasn't really a rationale that went along with that, other than in the context of owners and their coffers and what consequences they feel they bear. and if there's an appetite, like you mentioned about free agents, for example, like what would happen if the lockout opened, and Gardy would certainly be low tier recruitment at that point if you're now going to hit the gas on the ones that you should have traded on before the lockout.
Right.
And makes me wonder if even the Yankees would grab him.
Right.
Makes me a bit concerned. If they are still hemming and hawing over the same bringovers that they were before the lockout.
Yeah.
So that makes me a little sad that he collateral damage. But there are dozens of other examples, I am sure, of that.
And the problem, there is the issue of center field in general. There's so many fans who are asking the question, who's going to play center field for the Yankees this year? Which I can't understand because Aaron Hicks didn't go anywhere. While he was unhealthy last year, he's still getting paid. He's still got that contract. And my guess is he'll be running his, out there opening day if he's healthy.
Right, 100%. But would the Yankees, open up the purse to have Gardy back in the way he was intended to be back last season?
Right.
They might just roll their dice that Hicks won't split a toenail.
Right.
On his third outing.
Yeah.
And be out for 3 weeks. So that might be what the crux of the mention was.
Yeah.
Because he would be a bench builder. He's not a starter.
Not anymore.
He would be a luxury item, like in a pinch run situation or covering center.
Yeah. And unless something drastically changes, I don't see Aaron Hicks, maybe he gets traded or something, but I don't see Aaron Hicks being the fourth outfielder riding the bench instead of Gardy, and then the Yankees going out and getting a center fielder. I don't see that happening, but that seems to be what fans believe might happen or what they want.
Yeah. No, I think once the clouds, part of it, the owners are good. If they don't know already, they know they need to retool that infield.
Right.
And they need to look at the pitching as always.
Yeah.
And they also seriously need to look at catching. They need to look at catching and the infield. Those are the weak spots.
Yep. I would agree with you there, 100%. I'd like to see, we could spend all day debating the different and analyzing the free agent shortstops out there, but just give me a name. Who do you want? Who's your dream pick for a Yankee shortstop?
I'm still team Story on that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm team Correa. I say go get the best. But I'm not saying that Story couldn't be the best because I really have never run the numbers myself to compare those two.
And I'm not remembering the age comparison.
Right. I'm not sure about that, but yeah.
And the same question goes for first base.
Yep, it does.
What's more important, having Olsen, who checks all of the boxes and then some, and is a lefty?
Yeah.
And not re-sign Rizzo. We've talked about that at every opportunity.
Yep.
And I think what makes bringing those people on, even at the detriment of losing some of our popular, players, is that this season needs to start beyond ready to roll. This season has to start ready to steamroll.
There you go.
A big complaint last year was the lack of motivation, the lack of energy.
Yes.
The sort of ambivalence that we were feeling off the team.
Oh my God! And the week a week would go by without a hit. It seemed like.
Yeah. And I bet if you look back, you're not too far off.
I know the offense just dried up at times.
That's right. And the defense got progressively sloppy in spots.
Yeah.
that makes me really lighten up my staunchness on certain things. And if that's going to bring energy and much more potential of a playoff spot, 12 or 14, who cares, for this example,
Right.
then give me the Olsen, give me whichever is the better of the two, however you look at that.
Yeah.
Great story.
Yeah.
I think Freddie Freeman, I'm sorry, because I know that, you've always had a support for Freddie Freeman. I've never not supported it, but it'll be, I'll fall off the chair in front of everybody next week or whenever that time comes if he doesn't re-sign with the Braves.
I agree with you. I believe he will re-sign with the Braves.
Right.
I'd be shocked if he ended up in pinstripes, but I would welcome it. I'd throw a parade.
Yeah, yes. You would ask that t-shirt company, get me that shirt.
Yeah, we would have to suggest a t-shirt to them in that case. Anyway, so I think that wraps up what I've got this week. Lynn, any final thoughts on your part? Anything we didn't cover?
No, I think, I think we should quickly address, Chris, and you raised this for me, the International League.
The international players, yes. I did make some notes about international signings. Let me see what I got here, if I can find them. Yeah. The Yankees, I found out the Yankees have been pretty busy in the international market. They have been able to sign the top international prospects in 19 and in 22. They signed Jason Dominguez, and we've all been enjoying watching him actually doing something this spring, right?
Yes.
I mean, he gets hyped all the time, but do you ever, it's time to see him play.
Right. Yeah. And absolutely. And I don't know for sure if this was tongue in cheek or not. But oh gosh, why do I always have trouble with names? We were just talking about him earlier. Give me a second. Now I have to look at my notes. I'll get it in a second. Okay, so Bryce Harper. Whether this was tongue-in-cheek or not, reached out to Chen Ming Wan, who was with MLB from, I think it was 05 through, for at least 5 years after that, who now coaches for a team in Taiwan. And Bauer reached out to him on Twitter and said, hey, you need a guy?
Love it.
Yeah, and the article I was reading, and it was from Essentially Sports, was, it's not so far out of the realm of possibilities the longer this goes on.
Right.
There's been other players on retirement or forced retirement that have done the same.
Right. Exactly.
Some couple of very popular Yankees.
Yep.
So going to the same area of the world. So, that could be a little bit frightening. Someone as young,
I know,
and as accomplished as Bauer, who's not even close to the end of a several year contract.
Right. As you say, I think probably tongue in cheek. Harper's known for his quirky sense of humor.
Yes.
I think. I also saw this week Mike Trout had a different response. He said, and I wrote that, I want to play the game. I love our game. He stressed that, but we need to get this CBA right. We're doing this for the future, basically.
Yes.
So the players are responding in different ways to what's going on, but we are starting to get some reactions.
But when he said, we need to do this for the future, I took it as for those still coming up, for the ones that are here, but not making what they should be making.
Absolutely.
And, back to Harper for a second, I'm with you. It was 100% tongue in cheek. However, it does open up the mind to, oh, holy crap, that could be a thing.
Yeah.
Sort of like the stadium staff that we were just talking about that have options elsewhere and are going to take them any red hot second now.
Right.
And I don't see it being Harper. Maybe he should take buy a plane ticket to Taiwan and go and get a photo op. And maybe that will close the deal for
there you go.
We should do a Papa John's on them.
Absolutely. I mean, I love international baseball. I happen to love Taiwanese baseball. I'm a Monkeys fan. So when it's monkey season, I'm there. Anyway. So there's all kinds of possibilities. We don't know where the CBA will land this week or what will happen, but we're both hoping for the best and hoping for baseball.
That's right. Really, to sum it all up, the possibilities. Right?
Thank you. Exactly. The possibilities. If only the two sides could come to some reasonable compromise for, and not just something that, is a Band-Aid, but a reasonable compromise that does trend toward making things more just and equitable for future players.
And make fans feel good about baseball or better about baseball.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So we want to thank you for joining us this week. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you think. Lynn, any final thoughts?
Stay positive.
Stay positive.
And remember that every week you always have a reserved seat here with Chris and me on the upper deck.
All right, thank you, and bye. Have a good Sunday.